So today we are here in the Dominican Republic, and I got a friend of mine here with me to have a conversation here today. Trix, I met you a couple days ago. Well, we met not face to face.
Yeah.
We met like from a distance, over social media and stuff a little bit. Kind of knew of who you were. You just got married to one of my friend. Well, it was one of me and my wife's friend's daughter.
Yeah.
That you got married to.
Yeah,
And so we never met. We've been wanting to meet. And
Absolutely.
anyway, here we are.
Yeah. Now this is a great place to meet too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Sand's beautiful. Water's beautiful. Weather's incredible.
Yes.
Everyone in the U.S. is freezing right now, and we're kind of avoiding that. So
Yeah.
it works out well for us.
Yeah. When I left home, it was like 10 below zero. Coming down here to 80 degrees in January is pretty nice.
Yeah,
Been
it's
good
real
one.
nice.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about your background, Trix.
All right, so I'm retired military. I did 20 years in the Army and did operations and training for a lot of that. Got a chance to go and travel around the world, live in different places, meet all kinds of different people from different cultures. A couple of deployments to combat zones, which were interesting. And then since then, I've become a businessman doing development, did property management for a little bit, and now I'm working for a company called New Mix as the chief operating officer.
Okay. And I'm Glenn, and I own a construction company back in Illinois, and we just wanted to get together today and have some conversation. We were talking earlier about that quote. Remember?
Yeah, the quote was, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good man to stand and do nothing. I believe it's close to that at least. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting one because it is true, right? The issue is that there's a lot of people that are frustrated with things that are going on around them, and they kind of feel like, like they're standing alone. And they might ask themselves, or people might tell them, hey, if you're, what are you going to do? It's just you. There's not much you can do. But that's kind of it's not true, really. It's a lie, because people feel that if it's just them, what difference do they make? And people can make a lot of a difference. Men can make a massive difference, even in their small circles and their groups, right? It starts with, a man and his family, trying to set the example for his children if he has children, being a beacon of light to his wife or spouse or girlfriend or brothers, sisters, mom, and his community as well, that's an important thing.
Yeah, it's completely agree with you. They think, well, I'm just a father. I'm just raising my children. I'm not really out there making a lot of noise per se, vocal noise. So they think that some men, I've had conversations with men. They're like, well, I don't want to go out on the street and riot or protest, whatever. I'm like, well, you don't have to. You just, like you said, just create a strong family, create strong children mentally, physically, and spiritually. You're already
influenced, yeah. And that's the thing is with, like, if you think about it, like the 6 degrees of separation, right? Everyone knows everyone within 6 degrees of separation. Have you heard that concept?
I have heard that, but
right?
Talk about it a little bit.
So the funny thing with that is, if you think about it, if your circle of influence, if you're making an impact there, right? So that's that first, reach out to that first degree. And then it just keeps spreading, right? So if those people are influenced by you and are able to set examples and be good people, right, then that's going to affect their circle, and it's going to affect the next circle, and it kind of spreads. The problem is that another reason that this idea of, like, do I make a difference, or oh, it's not that important because of whatever. The misconception there is that the people that are influencing within their realms and their circles and trying to show others around them how to live a good life and to be good people, they're the quieter ones, right? They don't have a need to be in the public eye and in the media and online, you know, being massively vocal about what they're doing, right? They're quiet. They're, you know, they're quiet in their beliefs in the sense that they're confident enough that they're making an influence and they're making a difference in their daily lives to those that are around them. The people that are being outspoken, a lot of the times, you know, are making a difference because they're screaming, right? It's like when I was growing up, my mom always used to tell me, if you're the one who's yelling in an argument, you might have already lost that argument, right? So if you have to yell for someone to listen to you, one, is it worth your time? And two, you know, are you even in the right at that point? So it's kind of important that people remember, like, you're not alone. It's just, being good people, we don't need to scream it from the rooftops and have everyone listen to us and believe us, right? We're influencing, you know, in just who we are on a daily basis.
Yeah, like it makes me think of like 93%, I think it's 93 or 92% of communication is nonverbal.
Nonverbal, absolutely.
And to the human mind, you know, the first time I heard that, I'm like, okay, whatever, that's just a good saying. That's just a quote, whatever. And, you know, this was years ago, obviously. I mean, when I heard that, you know, I was pretty young when I heard it, and I'm like, there ain't no way that's true. That's just...
It's 100% true.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I thought, you know, the first time I heard it. It's totally true.
Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, I think the reason that we sometimes forget that as human beings, as men, you know, whatever, is because it doesn't seem, I don't know, it just doesn't, like you said, we think that the people that are making a difference are the ones that are being lied.
Right.
That's just
well, if you remember
our mind
from,
lying to us.
Yeah, but if you remember from like a couple nights ago when we were talking about it, one of the things we talked about was, and I'm trying to remember it correctly so that I say it right, but when it comes to talking about things, and it's a difference between, you know, if someone's saying something and doing another thing, right? So we were talking about being men of our word,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so you do more to show people through action or inaction in some cases, right? The choice to not take action, right? That's just as important in some cases. And this is a conversation my wife and I actually just had this morning, believe it or not. We were talking about joking around, and she was talking about, she was like, she gets really upset sometimes with you know, things that she sees or what people are doing or saying, and she's like, yet you don't react. And I was like, yeah, there's no reason to react to what they're saying. You know, they're antagonizing you. They're looking for you to respond, and it's not worth my time or effort to give them that satisfaction. I can just say, well, that's great, that's fantastic, and move on. And because what's going to be gained if I engage that person in that, right? So sometimes the inaction is just as important as the action, but being a man of your word is important, right? So and that's why the nonverbal thing is important, right? That we're talking about. I can sit all day and say, oh, you know, I'm going to do this or I'm doing that, and this is what I think and this is what I believe, but that actually doesn't mean anything unless I'm taking the actions to back that up, right? If I'm taking those steps, if I'm trying to be a good leader in my family, if I'm trying to, you know, show my kids, you know, how they can be righteous and be healthy and be loved and be a productive member of society, and hey, here's the keys to it. This is the steps that you need to do. If I'm not taking those steps, then what good is that advice, right? It's false. So
yeah, it makes me think of men or women or whoever, just human society in general. It's like, don't do as I do, but do as I say.
Yeah.
It's like, that is so, to me, watching that, if I see someone do that, it's like, how can I make sure that I'm not doing that? Because the first thing I want to do is judge them. They're like, oh, you know, you're such a piece of, you know, whatever. You're such a two-faced
Yeah.
moron, and I'm like, no, hold on. Take that as an example of how do you make society a better place. Just observe and see what you would want to change and then change it. Be the change. I mean, don't go judge them, because that's I used to be really judgmental growing up in my life. I mean, I grew up Amish, and I was very under a lot of religious pressure, and
Right.
performance, performance, works, all that stuff, to try to be a good person, And when someone was not a good person, all I wanted to do right away was just judge them harshly. And what I learned over the years is you will be judged for how you judge other people.
Yeah.
And that's where I had to learn that it's a fine line for myself. How do I not judge other people when I see them doing things that are maybe not right, but who am I to judge? But it's like, well, what should I be doing? I should do, like you said, do what you say.
Yeah.
Just do what you say and be a good person.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, possibly you can wear off on them, If you want the world to be a better place, then be that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, and at the end of the day, right, and as a Christian, God has charged us to show his light, right? So, but we're not without sin, right? That's okay, right? We're not without sin, but just the little things, right?
Yeah.
Even just again, like we talked about a few nights ago as well, kindness, right? So you don't have to be nice, but he does kind of want you to be kind, right? So just being who you are, being kind. So if someone's out there doing something that you disagree with, it's okay to ask questions about it, right? It's okay to tell that person that you disagree and why, and engage in conversation. Conversation is one of the most powerful things that I think we're starting, more than starting, but we've kind of lost a little bit as a society as a whole. People are afraid to engage in conversations because they don't know what happens if someone is on the opposite side of that, and what happens if they're having that conversation. So
yeah.
So it's one of those things where, if you can have a conversation with someone, if they're doing something you disagree with, you can tell them that. That's not mean to tell someone that you disagree with it. In fact, it's kind of a nice thing. If I'm doing something that someone doesn't like or doesn't agree with, I'm okay to them telling me that, especially if I've crossed a boundary with a person, right? People are afraid of putting up, hey, this is my boundaries for what's best for my health and my family and well-being, but they also forget it's okay to still have a conversation about that being a boundary and why, right? So, and that's action versus beliefs. There's a difference in that, right? So if I'm taking an action that is affecting you directly, it's okay for you to tell me, hey, Trace, listen, I don't really like that. I don't really agree with it, and this is why, right? And, I'd appreciate if you don't do that again. Now, if I'm saying that I believe in something, and you're like, hey, I don't really want you to say that because I don't really believe the same thing, and it offends me that you believe something different than me. That's a whole different conversation. That's no longer a boundary. That's just an unwillingness to engage in conversations with people with different beliefs. So
Yeah, it's and talking about different, being afraid of engaging in different, because how the next guy is going to think and stuff, because I'm going to offend you. Oh, woe is me.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
You're worried about with other people,
Yeah.
other men in your life, other people in your life, how they respond to that.
yeah. Aren't we supposed to be grow some
Thicker skin.
Grow some thicker skin. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you want to be in life? I mean, you want to be this little weak sucks, pimp squeak?
No.
We got enough of those.
No. The thing is that having confidence in yourself is a big priority for especially in my life. I question myself a lot, but it's actually good because it's more of a introspection kind of a thing. Yeah, sorry. But so So I do question myself, but I'm also confident in who I am and what I'm doing, right? So, but I'm not afraid to tell people that, right? I'm not afraid to have a conversation with someone in the sense that they might not believe me or support me, because at the end of the day, I found that most of the people that, and it's kind of a two-edged sword here, right? So you don't want to find people that only believe what you believe, because then you have like groupthink, right? So
Yeah, you
everyone's
get the groupie and you're all
Yeah.
bunch of weak sucks.
Yeah. So that's the hard thing is that, you know, I have my core group of friends and family that I enjoy engaging on, but even with them, that group, there's still variations and differences in how we think things should be or handle things, and we're not afraid to engage each other about that, right? I'm not afraid that if I talk to my brother or my best friend and I'm saying, hey, blah, 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 and he's like, yeah, I don't agree with that our relationship's over, we can't be friends anymore. In fact, we wouldn't be friends at the beginning if we couldn't have those kind of things. So for people that are having problems that, you know, talking to their friends or family about what they believe in or what they think, just remember it's okay to engage them in that, and it might not be easy. In fact, I challenge you to find conversations that won't be easy, because it makes it easier to kind of broach those things, and the more often you do it, the easier it'll be for you. It'll be easier for you to engage in it. I'm not saying the conversations will be easy to have, but it'll be easier for you to get into those conversations and handle those things.
Yeah, and if we don't ever have tough conversations and conversations that are not easy or always fun or flowery, feel good, tickle your ears, you'll never rise up to. For me personally, I've learned that I'll never rise up to be the man who I was created to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's critical, and it also, entering into diverse conversations like that, it helps you to start thinking for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Instead of just aimlessly living for everyone else, and that's totally. I see a lot of men that are unhappy with their life because they don't even really know who they are, because they're living life for everyone around
else. Yeah.
Constantly, they're just being passive and
no, you have to take an active stand in your life and who you are and what you want from life. And you're right. There's a lot of people that are miserable, and most of them, I would gather to say, are men that are just having a tough time out there because they're afraid of what happens if they take a stance on something, or if they say the wrong thing, or if they take the time to actually stop and think. That's one of the hardest things is that life is in this century is like very go. It's very, very busy, right? So, and not having grown up Amish, I don't have firsthand experience, so I defer to you on this, but I would assume that the Amish lifestyle, from the sense of everything is a lot more simpler on what the focuses are. Am I wrong in that, or is it? I mean, are you focused?
That gets kind of be a long, really drawn out conversation, but you said simpler.
Simpler in the sense of what you should be focusing on, or is it more complicated?
A lot of it is really what we're supposed to be focusing on is whatever the religion book, rule book, you might say, says.
Okay, so complications in its own then.
Yeah,
versus looking for yourself.
It can be complicated because sometimes they change the rules, or they let you bend the rules one day and then the next day they don't let you bend the rules based on who. When I say based on who is enforcing the rules, whether it's my school teacher or my dad or my grandpa, which is maybe a leader of the church, or the preacher, the bishop of the church, or they all have somewhat of a same way of thinking. They're all kind of following the same rule book, but
different interpretations.
different
at times.
interpretations. And
Okay.
well, my grandpa said, I know my grandpa's okay with me doing this, but my dad's not going to be okay with me doing this, or the bishop in the church is going to do this number,
So that's a good foundation for what we're talking about then, in the sense of like having that ability to find out what's good for yourself, right? To ask questions, to take the time to have some introspection and say, okay, how do I feel about this, and what do I think about this, and why is it that I think this? From a more scientific side of it, it's actually it falls under critical thinking, right? So the ability to think about the processes of how you think and what you believe, and understanding your biases and where they come from, so that you can make better informed decisions, right? So critical thinking is a skill and an art form all at the same time, right? So having the ability to say, hey, this is what I think. Okay, why is it that I think this? Where did I come to that from? What are my biases on that? Does it come from personal experiences? What are the chances that those experiences are narrow in scope, or don't really approach the whole thing? Maybe I had a negative experience, and that's affected my entire belief system and how I schedule, put everything together. So being able to use critical thinking, and you don't have to do that, with someone. You can do that internal. It just requires you to sit there and say, okay, this is how I feel about this. All right, I feel this way because when I was a kid, that's how I was raised, right? I was brought up that way. Is it something that I truly believe, or is it something that's been ingrained in me? Okay, if it's something that's ingrained in me, do I still believe it though? Okay, yes or no, right? And so you can go down a whole path, and the more comfortable you get with doing that with yourself, the more comfortable you'll be in engaging other people in that, right? Because the same questions you're asking yourself when you're doing that critical thinking is the same questions that when you're having a conversation with someone else and you're trying to understand where they're coming from. You can use those same questions, right? So and so the better you are coming at yourself with things, the better you'll be when you're engaging with someone else, and it makes it more real. It makes it honest, because now you're not just responding to what they're saying, right? You're trying to understand where they as a person are coming from. Yeah. Which means a deeper connection with that person, right? Because if you can understand where a person's coming from and what they're thinking and what they're doing, then you have a better chance of establishing a connection and a relationship with that person, right? Whatever that might be, right? It might be, a temporary thing, it might be a long-term thing, but you are going to grow from it, they're going to grow from it. And so, there's
iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I mean, it is. Iron sharpens iron. And when you're sharpening iron is sharpening, when you're sharpening a knife blade or whatever, you're sharpening iron, it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily make me feel like it's comfortable.
No.
So why should, when we're sharpening each other, it's not necessarily comfortable, but man,
but the results of that honed blade,
benefits
it's
later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, it's so amazing.
Yeah. We've had a chance to have a couple of good conversations, and every single one of them has been absolutely fun.
Just amazing. Yeah.
I've learned a lot. I've been able to, go back even after the conversations and think to myself, and I'm like, wow, that's so crazy that I was able to, think that or hear that and then I go through my process again, right? I'm like, wow, okay. I knew that I believed that, but voicing it out loud is a totally different thing. And being able to have that engagement back and forth and have you ask questions and provide your feedback on your thoughts on the topic and things like that. It just, and it's one of the things that I think that, we need to keep doing, right? Not just you and I, right?
Yeah.
We will, but, everyone. I think it'd be good for people just to have a conversation with someone that is either new to them and just engage with them and be real, be vulnerable, allow yourself to have that conversation.
Exactly.
It helps.
Like me growing up Amish, and you got like 3 different culture.
Yeah, so Lebanese, Cuban, and growing up though in the United States, first generation. So I've been exposed to everything, and then having traveled around the world, I have friends in every different belief and multiple countries and everything, and so it's fun being able to have those conversations and have that background. And my background, from the Cuban and the Catholicism on that side, and then the Christianity on the Lebanese side.
So going back to a little bit of a personal experience with me, you were talking about having your bias. Why do you think the way you think? Was it because of an experience you had when you were growing up, or how you grew up, etc.? And something that I've had to deal with over the years, and just in the last couple of years I dealt with it at a deeper level, is when we left the Amish church several years back. When I was Amish more of my life I was Amish than not. I'm 43 years old now, and I had left the Amish, ran off from home when I was 17 years old, and then I went back and became a church member again, and I was away from the church for a couple of years, completely away from it, just for a couple of years, and went back and became a church member. And of course I was Amish all the way my first 17 years of life, and I never liked rules. Well, I shouldn't say never. In the last 10 years or so of my life, I started just hating rules. And I had to dig deeper on that here lately and ask myself, where did that hate for rules and guidelines and boundaries come from? And I had to dig down, and where it was stemming from was when I was a kid growing up, and then also as an adult being in the church, being under that religious pressure. Most of my life. I just got fed up with it finally, and I just kind of kicked everything to the side several years back, and I got into immoral things, in my marriage, and I did some really bad things because I was kind of
lashing out
against
free.
The rules, and wanting to break free of everything, and not having any rules of anything. And what it did, it escalated to the point where it was starting to affect my business, because I didn't want rules in my business either, because I hated rules because they always brought pain.
Okay.
Yeah, rules brought pain because I was constantly in trouble if I broke rules. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna think for myself and have no rules. And I did that for several years, and it brought a lot of pain. And I'm like, well, no rules are more painful than rules. So I had to figure out. It was a very it was a really complex thing for me to figure out.
You had to find your own internal set of guidelines and rules, right? So, and that's tough because as a Christian, you have two sets of rules, right? You have God's rules, you have man's rules, but for and even within those, you strive to follow God's rules and His interpretation and the Holy Spirit, but you also have man's rules, which sometimes line up a little bit, but then it's what's with these.
So this was good conversation, J-Trix. I'm glad we were able to join. And
yeah, we talked about a few different things, but I'm glad we were able to have this conversation. Hopefully, help some of your viewers understand. Use that critical thinking internally first, and then don't be afraid to have conversations with people. Right? If we were afraid for you and I to have conversations, we wouldn't have had the chance to get to know each other as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And so don't be afraid to talk to your friends, and but first take that time to have some reflection inside of yourself and understand why it is you feel the way you do about things and what you think about things. But I'm grateful for this opportunity. I really am.
Yeah. Well, I guess hopefully we'll get together again.
Oh, we will.
Sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping maybe we do it again on a beach, but
yeah.
If not, it'll still be a good time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, hey. All right. Until next time, I guess.
All right. Appreciate it. Have a good one, channel.
Good channel.